Hi guys, I missed some of you already. But I just want to re-emphasize what you guys have been talking about last week, because we're going to continue moving forward with this chapter about the Pythagorean theorem. So a couple of you guys reached out on Friday talking about that there was just a little bit of confusion about what's actually happening with this equation and how it relates to that triangle. So I just want to talk about those two things and how they match up right now. Okay, so just like we talked about, the Pythagorean theorem only deals with right triangles. We're not really talking about acute or obtuse triangles. We're only talking about those triangles that have 90-degree angles. And this one right here, right, has this 90-degree angle. It's right here. You see it. Okay? Now, with right triangles, you know that you have three sides of that triangle. Two of them are considered the legs, right, because they're the shortest. Oh, I'm so sorry. Because they're the shortest sides. And they're the sides that make up the 90-degree angle. And then we have this long side opposite, right? It's across from the 90-degree angle. That's called the hypotenuse. Now, you guys were able to discover and you were able to practice a little bit with this. And understand that, maybe the side lengths don't add up to the length of the hypotenuse. But when you find those squares, they do, right? So when we talked about we're looking for the square of B and maybe the square of A. We found out that when you add those two together, it equals that square of C. So what our goal is today is just to be able to figure out these areas and figure out these side lengths without actually having to use that square. So we came up with this rule, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and that's because we're literally using the squares of these side lengths in order to figure out, right, what the hypotenuse is. So A and B, right, those are still our legs, and C represents our hypotenuse. The only difference now is that we're talking about those squares in the form of exponents because we don't necessarily want to draw those squares out. So the assignment that you guys are working on today does not give you any triangles, and I don't really want you guys to spend your time using those triangles because although we figured it out and although it can be a good resource, it's going to take a lot of time, and one of the best things that math can teach you is how to be efficient with your time. So we're going to start being efficient with our time by using this equation here that allows us to figure out the exact same thing without having to draw triangles and squares and figure out the areas of them all together. All right, so this is going to go back to that example that I talked about last week in that video, right, where it said, maybe A equals 3 and B equals 4. The side that we're missing in this case automatically is C because there's only 3 options. Now, if you need to, so that you know what's going on, label A as a leg because we know that A is a leg. We know that B is a leg. And we know that C is our hypotenuse, right? When we look back up here, that's exactly what it is. We have A, B, and C are hypotenuse. We know that we can plug this into the equation, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. We know that A is 3, so we're just going to plug that right in. Just like all the other equations we've done, we've been working with equations forever. You're just going to plug 3 in for A, so we have 3 squared. We're going to plug in 4 for B, so we have 4 squared. And we don't know what C is yet, so we're just going to leave it as C squared. All right, now here comes some of the easy part, all right? We have 3 squared. And if you don't remember, 3 squared just means 3 times 3. Right? We're finding that square. We're looking for that square, and one side length is 3, the other side length is 3. We're looking for that area, so it's 3 times 3. 3 squared is 9. Right? 4 squared, the exact same thing, is just 16. And we know that 3 squared plus 4 squared equals C squared. 9 plus 16 is 25. Oh no. All right, 25 equals C squared. That's telling you that 25 is the area of the hypotenuse. That's this space right here. we can't use that as our answer because we're not looking for the area. They want us to be able to figure out what that side length is. So in order to figure out what that side length is, we have to kind of go backwards. And a lot of you guys are so quick to say, oh, okay, we'll just do 25 divided by 2. But that is wrong. Do not do that. That's the worst thing you could possibly do. You will not get the right answer. You will not get something that makes sense in terms of the problem that we've been dealing with. And even if you were to do that, right, you have 25 divided by 2, that's 12 and a half. Right, so if, again, we have this triangle, and this side length's 12 and a half, and this one's 4, and this one's 3, when you go to check that, something's not going to make sense, right? If you plug all of these values back into this equation, you're not going to get something that matches up. So you just want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. Now, since we're working with squares, we know that we're multiplying a number by itself. So if we want to find the square root, what we want to do is figure out, well, what number, C, times itself is going to get us back to 25, not what number times 2, all right? So we don't want to do that. We want to say what number times itself equals 25. So if you want, make yourself like a little poster. Maybe I'll post a poster later of all of those perfect squares so you can just think about it. But if this is easy to you, then so be it. Or just do guess and check, right, that we talked about in that other video. What number times itself equals 25? If you can say, I know that 5 times 5 equals 25, then you're perfect, all right? So we know that the side length to this triangle is going to be 5. The length of the hypotenuse is going to be 5. So when we come back to that original triangle, right, I think this is one of the ones you guys practice with. We have a side length of 3, a side length of 4, and we know that our hypotenuse is going to be 5. That's perfect. That's all I'm asking you guys to do today, is just to be able to take something that looks like this and find that equation. This is exactly what your notes are going to look like. So we'll do another example so it's a little neater and then I'm done. But this is what I want your notes to look like when you do them today for your practice. Alrighty, so we have a triangle. We know that B equals 8. And we know that C equals 10, which means that we don't know what A equals. So we're a little bit in the dark about that one, but that's okay because we know how to solve it. This is what your notes are going to look like, all right? We know that A and B are both legs. We know that C is the hypotenuse. And when we start plugging them into the equation, we'll know exactly what it is that we need to solve for. We'll know exactly what it is that we need to do. If you just start writing things on the side, like I'll see some of you guys are like, oh, 8 times 8. Okay, so 64 minus 100. Okay, I know what I have to do. That's not it. Don't do that. I think that's also wrong subtraction anyway. Yeah, okay. Anyway, we're taking this and we're plugging it in, all right? We don't know what A squared is, so we're going to leave that alone. We know that B is 8, so we have 8 squared. Oh no. We have A squared plus B squared equals C squared, our hypotenuse. Again, we're leaving A squared alone. We know that 8 times 8, right? If we're taking that square, is 64. And we know that 10 times 10, since we're taking that square, is 100. Now this time, you can't just be so quick and so hasty to add them up because we have A on this side. We're solving for A. Since we're solving for A, we have to get rid of this 64 that's on the same side of the equation. And in order to get rid of that, you guys should know that you have to subtract. All right? So we get that A squared equals 36. So then you're going to say, okay, well, what number times itself, right? What number times itself equals 36? Oh, I know that that answer is 6. So we'll get that A equals 6. I'm not asking you to draw a triangle. That's actually something you won't have to do at the end of it. But if you want to, because it helps you visualize it, then I'm okay with that. All right? But what you can do is check your answer once you're done. So we found all of these side lengths. You said that A is 6. We have 6 squared. We know that B is 8 plus 8 squared. And then C is 10 equals 10 squared. 6 times 6 is 36. 8 times 8 is 64. 10 times 10 is 100. Does that work? Yeah, it does. Perfect. So we know that it's definitely going to be a right triangle. We know that we did our work correctly. Not next week, maybe in like 2 or 3 days, we're going to start talking about how we can use checking our answer to figure out whether it's going to be a right triangle, an acute triangle, or an obtuse triangle. But that's a little further down the line. So good luck with today's lesson. If you have any questions, I am available. I believe in you. Bye.